Today is September 9th, 2017, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And we're in the first week of September, and honestly, this has been one of the slower weeks in terms of news. Not a lot going on, but there's been a lot of news of upcoming events that we're going to expect in the coming weeks. And we're kind of doing an event that started last week, but we're finishing that up this week. And thanks to PvP, there's a lot of games to get through, so we're still playing the game a ton. So Deck Tech, how have you been doing in Duel World and PvP?
Yeah, it's been mostly PvP. As we talked about last week, once I got to stage, I think, 5 in the current event, I just drastically dropped off on doing it. But then a rogue Toon Barrel Dragon hype train came in, and I decided to hop back into that event a little bit. And we're going to talk about that hype and the decks that it's in and stuff later, but basically I started playing it a little bit more so that I could get my third Toon Barrel Dragon, which I did, and I'm also, trying to slowly get the other rewards that aren't as immediately valuable, but maybe at some point I'll want them. We always talk about how you should maximize the events while you can, even if they don't appear to be relevant at the time. So I'm trying to take my own advice there, but mostly I've been playing PvP. I already have 41 wins, which is like way more than I've ever had at this point in a month. As you guys might recall, I had 60 total all of last month. That holiday weekend helped, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm up to Plat 3 with that. And I probably would have been King of Games already if they'd done the 5 rank drop instead of the 10 rank drop. But it's nice that the month that they give us the 10 rank drop, I happen to have a lot of extra time to play more. So I'm feeling pretty solid about my chances, hoping to get to Legend this weekend, and then have that, a couple weeks to get in that final push, and hopefully that'll be enough. I was playing mostly my Hazy Sphinx deck for a lot of that, and then in the last couple days I've been trying out various versions of the Toon Barrel Dragon and stuff. So we'll see how that goes. What have you been up to?
Is that the deck you're going to stick to, like, going forward? Or is it just... Yeah, I know you said you've been very streaky with that deck.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure if it's hard to say with such a small sample size if it was an issue with the deck, or if I just got unlucky, or maybe I was messing something up and I didn't realize it, or playing a suboptimal build. There's kind of 2 major builds right now, and I'm not sure which one I prefer. So I don't know if I'm going to ride it all the way out through King of Games. Of course, if that ends up taking the whole month, then there's a good chance that some new cards are going to come out and might just change everything anyway. So we'll see. It seems like it's in a decent spot to be a pretty solid deck. A lot of people on Reddit are already calling it like the new best deck in the format and stuff. I don't know if that's yet true, but it does seem to be really solid for like ladder play because it tends to be pretty quick. And I love my 3-star demotion, so there's a chance that I'll play it all the way up. Hazy Sphinx felt a little bit more solid, like you said. It was This deck was pretty streaky for me. I won my first 3 or 4, and then I lost 3 in a row, and then I won 3 more. But it's evened out a little bit more since then. So I don't know. I still haven't made any decisions as to what the cause of that was.
Cool. Yeah. I've kind of did the same thing with the Duelist Chronicles event. I did 5 and then I stopped. And then kind of my story is that I usually keep a reserve of gems, but I've been really starved the last few weeks trying to finish off Crimson Kingdom and also Echoes of Silence. So I was actually doing the event for gems. Like for the lottery.
Yeah.
And I got a few gems that way. And I just had so many dice. I was just auto dueling the event because I don't know. I've seen it so many times. I didn't feel like playing it. But I got some gems. Like, I already had 3... I have 4 Toon Barrel Dragons, so it's, I didn't really care about maxing out the coins. I just wanted to get some gems. But in terms of PvP, I'm at 45, and I got Plat 1 last night. And
nice.
The games were really tough. I felt like I was going through a trial last night, and it was just like nonstop counterplay. A lot of counterplay. I mean, that's what you expect in a high level. Oh, Gold 5 isn't too high level, but everyone's trying to get into Platinum. But yeah, I was playing 3 different decks. While I was waiting to get my cards, I found a version of Victory Viper, which has the Gravity Blaster and a lot of random cards, like Second Booster. And this got me a Gold 4 for some reason. Like, it just... Apparently it's good in Plat too, but I got the Gold 4, and then I got my Ultimate Insect from Echoes of Silence. So then I did the Level Up deck. And the Level Up deck is Silent Magician plus Ultimate Insect. So, it's a really good deck, but we'll talk about it later. The Silent Magician gets countered a lot, despite being immune to opponent spells. I found myself getting countered a lot. And then the Ultimate Insect, it has to live. It has to keep leveling itself up instead of using the spell on it. I mean, it depends. Sometimes you could use the spell, but it was tough to play. So then I got to 30 wins, and I got my first Red Eye's Insight, and I decided to play Red Eye Zombie. And this was probably the safest deck I've used out of the 3 so far, and that is the deck that got me through the fights in Gold 5 to Plat 1. This is a very suboptimal version because I only have 2 Gozukis and 1 Insight, so I have to use other methods to dispose of Red Eyes, and I also played it very suboptimally. Like, I never used it. I never had an Insight, so I actually discarded 1 in my hand instead of 1 in my deck.
Yeah.
And also with Gozuki, I played Gemini Zombies a lot. I played that all of last season. And you use Gozuki very differently in a Red Eye Zombie deck, and I had to... It took a lot of misplays to know how you use it in this deck compared to the last deck.
Yeah.
So, yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you were able to get there with just 1 Insight. I didn't realize you had 0 before.
Yeah,
so.
it was like the thing where I didn't care about Super Joey, and that kind of screwed me over for till now.
Yeah, gotcha. Just before we move on, I forgot to mention, anyone who follows us on Twitter knows that I tried to make Exodia work when I hit the Platinum tier, the bottom tier, because you can't go down from there. And man, I was getting really familiar with that level floor. Exodia is not yet built, and I tried a few ways to try to make it work, and none of them were successful. So to anyone who's trying that out and having any sort of success, it'd be really cool to hear from you. And if you're looking for a deck that is tried and proven, that's not the one.
So Screech doesn't make the cut?
No, I tried the Screech version. I tried a version that had Magical Merchant, and
I saw that one.
Yeah. And the recruits, I forget what it's called, Backup Soldier, I think. And so I would just dump the entire Exodia into my graveyard, and my only 2 spells were Backup Soldier and the Monster Reincarnation or something. So that didn't work either.
I saw a version that had... It was a turbo draw version with the Summoners and the Fiend Jesters. It ran 3 Jars of Greed and then one of the Legacy of Yatagarasu. So it's like 4 draw 1 card cards.
Yeah, I tried the turbo draw version as well for a bit, and that one might actually be the best one. It's not very tricky, obviously very straightforward, but there's just a lot of draw potential there, and it's just so many decks these days are so fast that if you're just kind of skipping your first couple turns, you're probably going to die before you get all the pieces. I think you have to get pretty lucky to make it work, because I faced a few as well when I was going up the ladder, and I'm pretty sure I won 100% of the time. It's just too slow for the current meta.
Right. I'm thinking like if a big defense monster makes a chance, but I feel like those get hit through with super rushes or enemy controllers as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools for more traditional gameplay, I think. And I think it's a good thing, because losing to Exodia is kind of annoying. You want to feel like they really earned it. And I think it's kind of well balanced in this game right now. But it would be nice if it were maybe just slightly more viable.
Yeah, right.
Where sometimes Exodia worked.
Yeah, it's a balance between making yourself feel good and making everyone else feel a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Alright, so that's enough about us. This week in esports, in the news section, Duel Links Meta Championship Series 2 is taking place today in probably like 3 hours, about 2 to 3 hours from this recording. It's going to happen. Huge prize pool. A tournament will have over $1,200 in prizes. I mean, I think the last one was like 500. It was about something like that. And they're rewarding people from first place to 8th place. So a lot of people are going to get the rewards. 8 out of 64 people, so that's 1/8 of the people. If you're interested in participating, hopefully you got yourself there. You had to go through a few hoops of being King of Games, and also do you have to be part of the Discord anymore? So far?
I don't know the details. I think you probably do. It's kind of like an invite type tournament, I think.
The first one was like that, but I think he wanted to expand. I don't know if this one if this one was the expansion yet, or if it's still exclusive. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit bigger than last time. The prize pool obviously is about twice as large, even more than twice as large. So I do think he's making good on his attempts to make it just overall bigger. Of course, it's a good amount of work to set up a tournament like this, especially when the client is a little bit suboptimal for doing so. So I totally understand that he has to kind of take it a little bit slow in waves in doing it. But this is a really big prize pool, and it's essentially just funded by Decade and his patrons.
Yeah, people donate money.
A lot of people donated money. If it's like last time, which I assume it kind of will be, he's made the donations that are made during the event also go to the event. So the $1,200, I forget what it was exactly, but it was like $1,260 or whatever. That's the minimum prize pool.
It's going to keep growing.
And it'll likely grow during the event. Last time it started at, I think, just like 150 or something, and ended up becoming 500. So I think there's a decent shot that this gets significantly larger too. I'm pretty excited about what he's doing in terms of growing the competitive community. And also, it's cool that it's got the format that he's using is each person brings 2 decks with 2 different skills, and you have to win with each of your decks. So it's a minimum, I guess, Conquest. Minimum of 2 games per match, or best 2 out of 3, I guess you could say. And so that's really cool. It means we get double the deck lists. It means we get to see some good gameplay. There's a little bit of strategy as to what decks you bring, because is one going to cover the weaknesses of the other or something like that. So I'm looking forward to checking it out. I'm probably going to watch some of it after we record.
Yeah, and I watched some of the first one when I was live, and it was actually really fun to watch because he's actually a pretty good commentary guy. And compared to the guys who broadcasted the World Championships, man, it's like miles apart because he actually has analysis.
Yeah, I mean, it helps, and you can tell that he is a very strong player. Obviously, he's one of the best in the world, and so he kind of just knows what the various outs are and the various plays, and there's this fine line, I guess, between his community is maybe like every other online Discord type community where they're full of memes and stuff like that. But he's also very I don't know, considerate of the people in his tournament. If something looks like it's a misplay, he's always careful to point out, like, well, we're not going to call it a misplay until we know exactly what happened. He might have been playing to this out, or, he might have this thing in mind, and maybe that's a bad read, but it makes sense. And I really appreciate that in a caster. That's really cool.
Yep. He comes off as really aloof in some of the videos, but there's, like, a serious intent to it. Like, he built this thing for a reason, and he's making it work. It's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and if you want to check it out, it's on twitch.tv/DuelLinksMeta. So, yeah, it'll probably be going on when this is out, so check it out. All right. And like we mentioned, the event Duelist Chronicles is going to wrap up on September 11th. So there's a few days left to do it. Since we discussed it last week, we weren't too high on Toon Barrel Dragon, but as Deck Tech mentioned, it got the community's attention, and it's better than expected and possibly broken. You get one for sure for completing the event, the first two. I think it's like the third or fourth one, or second one. I forget which one, but you get one guaranteed, so make sure you get that done. And you can also get them from the card lotteries. As we mentioned, the card lotteries aren't the best in getting off the SRs. You get one maybe, was it every 50? Just about.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot, maybe every 50.
But the coins, you get the coins pretty easy, right? Like that's what I'm like. You could roll through a few lotteries just by completing one round, from my experience.
Yeah, I think you're right. I seem to do about every little zone. I tend to get a lottery, I think.
Yeah,
if not more.
That makes sense. Like a set of 10, basically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant. So you could get there pretty quickly, and we're going to be checking it out. I've been, like we said, back in it. So.
Right. And also the other cards, if you are missing Union Attack, or if you want to collect Lajin, or if you want to collect Kuribo, and there's like a Kuribo deck out too. I don't know if it's any good. It probably isn't, but if it is good, you'll probably want the multiplies and the detonates with the 3 Kuribos, probably. Who knows?
Yeah.
Alright. The ranked duels, double keys, and gold campaign is ending tomorrow, the 10th of September. So these are 2 separate events, right? Oh, the ranked duels event is the 100 gems one, right?
Right, yeah. Sorry. Bad show notes there. Yes, those are 2 separate events that happen to be ending at, I think, the same time, definitely on the same day.
Right. Yeah, and those 5 PvP, I don't think you even have to win the games. You just have to play 5 games, I think, for the 100.
Yeah, I think that is correct.
Yeah. So make sure you play 5 games. Even if someone disconnects or surrenders, you'll get the gems. Alright. Card Trader Inventory Update. So there's 4 new cards that were introduced last Sunday, so they've been here about 6 days or so we're going to talk about these cards. Because these are the only new cards introduced to the pool this whole week. Botanical Girl, 1300 attack water plant. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 plant-type monster with 1,000 or less defense from your deck to your hand. This is an SR.
Yeah, so it is, obviously we've seen this type of effect with Raimei and Gakupan, and they have uses. Raimei sees a lot of play in farming decks with the Unhappy Girl. I've played a little bit of Gakupan in various things. I'm sure other people have as well. So this is exactly the type of card, the tutor effects, as we call them, that tends to, at one point in the game, usually see some play. And that means that it might be worth picking up, but presently there does not appear to be any uses. So whenever it might see play, it does not look like it's going to be now. And it's also a little bit more expensive than the other ones. I think Gakupa was an N or maybe an R.
It was an R, yeah.
Okay. It was definitely not a super rare. And so it's a little bit weird that this one is so much more expensive than the other ones. The Raimeis, I don't even remember where they came from. I think they were from a pack.
They're from Neo Impact, I think.
Yeah, they were cheap, or easy to get, I should say, within that pack. So it's a little bit weird that this one is the hardest one to grab. I don't think that this is good for the current plant decks because Naturia is like way faster than this. They don't want to be doing this. So it basically the long and short of it is that it will maybe see play at some point because these types of cards tend to see play, but there does not presently appear to be a home for it. And it's a little bit pricey.
And it's pricey for an SR, I think. I've skipped over it twice, and it's like 6 or 7 SR gems.
Oh, wow.
Some of them are like 4. Some of them are like 4, right?
Yeah, I've gotten some 3s even. So that's doubly weird then that it's even more expensive.
Yeah, we need this on an wholesale price for it to be purchasable, or some OP plant that works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For now, I'm in the same boat where I'm skipping it for now, keeping an eye on it, and just kind of being aware that maybe at one point I'll want to get it, but right now it just doesn't seem worth it.
Yep. All right. The next card is Fragrance Storm, and this is a spell. Target one plant-type monster on the field, destroy that target, and if you do, draw one card. Then, if that card is a plant monster, reveal it, and draw one more card. This reminds me a lot of a Hearthstone card. Do you know which one?
No.
Roll the bones. Roll the bones.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
But that doesn't destroy anything.
But you get to chain a draw if it's the right one.
That's true.
Yeah, alright. Let's go back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yu-Gi-Oh! Yes. So this game, well, this game is interesting. But what I was going to say is that this card is interesting for a couple of reasons. One is that the phrasing of it, it makes you think that you're trying to use it on your own guys. Because if you are running a bunch of plants, then you can help, you get the better chance of drawing the second card if you kill your own plant. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't say your own guys. Yeah. So you can use it as removal if plants become common. You probably, unless plants just become totally dominant, you probably don't want to play it unless you also run plants, because then it might be a dead draw. But like, if you're in a Naturia mirror or something, that could just be backbreaking. The problem with it, as far as I see, is that it is not a quick play. Right. So you can't use it to save your guys from enemy controllers or whatever else that they might be targeted by. So it's significantly weaker in that, for that reason. I think maybe this card could see some play if Naturia were to become somehow better and more meta-defining. Seems like that ship has kind of sailed a bit, though, so I don't see how that would happen. But maybe Botanical Girl is a clue that more plants are coming.
Yeah, it's hard to say with these trader cards, like what they mean for upcoming sets.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I also think another way that this could see use is maybe in a deck in a sideboard format, where you think that you can afford, like if you run maybe a few plants in your Naturia deck and you just really want to stomp on the mirror match, you could throw these into your sideboard. So there's a couple ways that I think this might become relevant. It's just a rare, unlike the Botanical Girl, so it might be worth taking a risk on it, or you just maybe just wait until you're in a situation when you want it.
Yeah, I think I got like 2 of these now, by now.
Yeah.
Alright, next card is the World Tree. It's a continuous spell. Each time a face-up plant monster is destroyed, place 1 flower counter on this card. You can remove any number of flower counters from this card to activate these effects. Remove 1 counter. Target 1 plant monster in the field. It gains 400 attack and defense until the end of the turn. The attack gain remains even if this card leaves the field, so it's permanent. Oh no, wait. It's only for the end of the turn, but if this card gets quick play destroyed, it stays till the end of the turn. 2 counters. Target 1 card in the field, destroy that target. 3 counters. Target 1 plant in your graveyard, special summon that target.
Yeah, so this card is like super interesting and it looks super fun. It's the exact type of card that I love to play, but in the speed duel format that we're in, it seems like it's just really slow. Yeah. As you pointed out before the show, Naturia decks are the only viable plant decks these days, and this doesn't fit into that deck because it is much faster. Naturia is much faster than this World Tree, and you are generally not killing your own plants except for maybe as like an enemy controller attributor or to trade into stuff. So it doesn't seem like it fits super well, and it seems like the effects you want, well, I guess you could use any of them, but I would think that the 2 counters and 3 counters are the ones that are like the most enticing. And so you're not really, even if it were to fit into a deck, you need it to fit like even slower deck because you're trying to get an even bigger effect out of it than just the one. And you want to get multiple effects because obviously if it's a conditional just gain 400 attack and 400 defense for 1 turn, that's not a very good card. You want it to activate a few times. So this is just by its nature a super slow card, and there's not really any plant support at this point to really work in that sense. But like I said, it's a really cool card, so I hope at some point I get a chance to play with it.
Yep. And the problem with Naturia, like if you put 2 of these in your deck or something, it just clogs up your chances of getting monsters. I guess that's kind of the issue.
Oh yeah, for Naturia you definitely want like the pumpkin and the hydrangea and the whatever. Yeah, I was thinking of the beetle thing, but basically you want these specific cards, and you definitely want the pumpkin and the hydrangea in your starting hand. So if you don't put it, I mean, I guess you probably wouldn't cut those specific cards for this, but you would have to cut some very important support cards or something. And basically the deck is designed to be very streamlined, and it has just a few tech slots that you can really even do anything with, and this seems like a poor way to use them for that deck. You would much prefer to just build a separate deck that uses this card.
Yep. And the last card is just an N, and it's probably the worst card of the new ones, but it's the Man Beast of Ares, or Ars. But this is a Beast Warrior with 500 attack and defense. After a chain of 2 or more links resolves, this card gains 500 attack. Seems really bad.
Yeah, there's so many Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I'm sure there's some way that this has some effect in some sort of combination, but this is conditionally still a bad card. Even if you set the requirement, it still sucks. So I don't see why you would play this.
This reminds me of a card that already exists. Blast Asmodean. If any spell or trap cards are chained, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So this is just any chain. Would that be a Link 2 though? Is a Link 2? Yeah, right.
I think so.
Yeah,
because this guy's got reminder text saying that, I think.
Yeah. But anyways, there's not a lot of like Link cards, and also with the 3 zones, it's a lot harder to rely on the effect, right?
I don't think that's that relevant, but it could be, I guess. Because
it's like if you have less spaces for spells.
Yeah, I gotcha. But you only needed to hit it says 2 or more links counts as a chain. So I don't know if that means 3 cards or not.
Yeah, what's a chain? Like, is 2 chain link 1?
Yeah, I think the link means you play
2.
1 card or an effect like right after another one, right? So if you have 2 or more links, I think that means 3 cards or effects. So yeah.
Okay. Anyways, this card sucks.
Yeah, it does. One day we'll learn the rules, but for now we just know that card sucks.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about the next upcoming event for next week, which is the party. This is kind of a funny event because it's a party, and then it's like a rampage, and it's an ice age, right? It's all those things in one.
Yeah, all the various like little hints to what's coming have all highlighted slightly different things, so it's a little bit weird to consider what's happening. I'm kind of piecing it together, and I don't think they'll do it this way, but the only narrative that I could figure out is that they're having a party, and Rex tries to hit on Mai, like he did on the boat, and she shuts him down, and then he goes on a rampage, and the Ice Age is a reference to his libido, and he's like, I'm not in the Ice Age yet, or something. I don't know. Yeah. It's just really weird to me that all of these various things are all descriptors of the same event.
And Rex Raptor is a guy that we can kind of relate to, I think, because he talks about spending his money on cards and stuff. He's kind of, he doesn't cheat. You know, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I thought you were going with that whole getting shut down libido thing, and I'm like,
maybe that too. Maybe that too. But yeah, he's upcoming. He's gonna come. We're pretty sure it's gonna be Rex Raptor, right? All the clues seem to point to him. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. And this is the third event, as we mentioned, with Joey and Mai. So this is the third event. Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna do Weevil next. Maybe everyone hates Weevil though. These events have been hit or miss so far with new rewards, spawning difficulty, and spawn rates and farming difficulty. And it might be the best one since Konami got a lot of feedback since the last 2 events, and this could be the best one. I don't know. The spawn rates might be better, and it might be easier to farm him. I don't know, unless things continued like the way they were, and he drops some OP card that someone has none of in the next tournament or something. That would kind of suck. Yeah. But we talked about some of his possible rewards last week. We mentioned Carbonetin, Dark Triceratops, and Tyranno Infinity. But people have come up with another card that could be the event based on some of the clues with the Ice Age and Rampaging. And this is Frostosaurus, which is a 2600 attack normal monster, just 1 tribute with 6 stars. And it's going to be 2900 with the Jurassic World field. It's going to be the strongest 1 tribute monster. Is this card going to be too strong if it's in the game, or are the meta decks strong enough where this is just okay to have?
Well, I do think that it would be okay to have. I don't think it would destroy the meta. But I do think it might be part of the meta. 2900 is a very solid attack. Very few things, obviously Blue Eyes, but most of the meta does not really attack over that or through it. And even with the beatdown activations, you would still need 2 different big guys to make your Red Eyes be able to attack over it. So I definitely think there's some potential there, maybe to bring Rex back onto the map. It'll be interesting to see how you cheat out the 1 tribute, because the problem with tribute monsters is always like, how do you make sure that you get it out? So you could do that through like double summons, or through monsters that return themselves, like the frog, or you can just protect your monsters for 1 turn and then play it like normally, which kind of feels a little silly that's like the least common way to do it in this game, but the normal way.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens here, but I do think there's definitely some potential because one tribute, that's just a lot of beef.
Yeah, if he gives the card Gillosaurus, which is a card that you see in the Aquacourse decks, it could special summon itself from the graveyard, I think, or from the hand. I forget what, but it's a free tribute, and you could just get Sky off right away.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think the way that it's free from your hand and your opponent can summon something from their graveyard.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so that's actually a good call. If we get those at the same time, there might be something there.
Yep. And this is kind of like a really simple way of playing. We're just playing like a really big normal monster, but that's kind of flavorful for what dinosaurs have done since they were the meta deck. They just overwhelmed you with strong monsters. And this would fit right into that.
Yeah.
Alright, so yeah, he's coming up. We just want a new event next week, and this is going to be the one, so get ready for him. And there might be farming decks again. I don't know. Like, we mentioned how farming... Like, they don't really want us to farm, right? So I don't really know. I think we're going to probably farm him again.
Yeah, I think it's hard for them to... There's so many people playing this game, and there's so many tools within this game that it's almost impossible for you to build something that is unfarmable, as long as it has like a set deck, which these guys always do. It's not like Rex is changing his deck between each match. So I think we've really only had like one that was kind of unfarmable, and it wasn't that it was unfarmable, it's just that it was not worth it to try to farm it because it was inconsistent in farming. So it's possible that they, again, give us one that's just so inconsistent in farming because he has so many tools that mess us up, so you have to counter enough things. But 2 points make me think that that's not going to happen. One is that the community was pretty upset about it last time. So I think making it, like, hard to farm but not that hard is maybe the better route. Just because I don't know how much they care about the Reddit community and the other pockets of kind of more hardcore players, but I do think they have to care a little bit. These are the people who are kind of like guiding the way for whales and stuff, getting people more interested into the game to the point that they want to devote more time and money, become hardcore themselves. So in the Hearthstone community that we're both a part of, the pros make up a tiny portion of the community, right, but they are given a big platform, and it's because they kind of, everyone watches streams and stuff like that, and it encourages more people to get into the game. And we don't really yet have that in Duel Links, where there's a few notable names. We've talked about this before. We like to highlight some players that we see a lot in tournaments and stuff, but there's no similar pro scene yet. And I do think that it behooves the game to kind of foster that a little bit. So I don't think they're going to make it impossible to farm. The other reason was that it doesn't really fit Rex's theme as well. He's not tricky, so right, he's probably going to be fairly straightforward in the way that he handles his duel. Like, he's just going to have like really big dudes and maybe a couple things to mess you up, but he's not like a tricky player, like you said. It's always been dinos are a little bit straightforward and kind of just beefy, and maybe with a few combat tricks, because otherwise he'd be super easy to farm, but nothing too crazy, I think.
I think the uproar last time was Bakuro with enemy controller, right? I think that's what it was. He had some card that didn't belong to it or something.
Oh, you think that's why the community was upset? I thought it was just because it was too hard.
Which one? Like, are you talking about Bakura or Mai? I forget who it was.
I guess Mai was pretty hard too, but I think Bakura was the one that was just pretty much everyone gave up on farming him because it was hard. We found decks that could do it, but it just wasn't worth it.
Right, yeah. And his rewards were so bad. I forgot which one. I think he gave away the gross ghost or something.
Yeah, I don't actually
They weren't notable. They weren't notable at all.
It's hard to keep track of these things. We could go through the old show notes if we really want to figure it out.
That's what we were referring to, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. Hopefully he's manageable and he gets good rewards that we can
Yeah.
all get equally. Alright, so some speculation now about Egyptian god cards and elemental heroes and more. This week, some videos surfaced on Discord, and which then surfaced onto websites, and they showed Egyptian god cards being played. This was done with the help of Redditor XOF. I think it goes by several different names, but every time I talk about a card data mine, I'm finding this guy in Discord and seeing what he posts. So this is the source of all the data mines I ever talk about. And he uses APKs or something to play, or I don't know if he was playing the video himself or if he found it in the files. But the god cards don't have artwork, so it's just like a black card, like a shadow card, and then it gains attack and it just destroys stuff. And the monsters, the characters have voice lines for them. So Yugi's saying, Slifer the Sky Dragon, use your attack. Use your thunder or whatever attack. So it's unknown if these are going to be playable, or if they're event cards. But there's been a lot of back and forth. Like, they seem OP, but people are saying they're not that good in this game. You mentioned that they're not that good in the TCG, right?
Yeah, I kind of just barely remember them. And you guys might recall, I've talked about it a couple times. I wasn't afforded the opportunity to dip my toe into Yu-Gi-Oh! I got into it and was kind of immediately thrust into the highest level of play because my local store happened to be one of the best stores in the country or maybe even in the world. And so I never saw the God cards at all. I'm sure that people who played on the playground or just with their buddies or fans of the show first instead of people who are just playing at that highest level, I'm sure the God cards saw a lot more play with those communities. But I'm just thinking that since I never saw the God cards at all, they must not have been that good unless they were immediately banned or something like that.
Yeah, I think they were forbidden for some, and then they were re-released or something when cards got better. But they all require 3 tributes. I think that's the main downfall in this format.
Yeah, that would make sense because, obviously it's pretty hard to completely fill your board. We have one card in this game now that can be summoned with 3 tributes, right? Forget.
Which one?
Yeah, I didn't prep you on that, so I don't...
What's its effect?
I don't even know, man. Let's see.
Moisture creature?
Hey, that's one, right?
No, it's 2, right?
Oh.
Wait.
I think he is. I think moisture.
I think you need 3 to use its effect, I think, or something.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Let's call that the one that I was talking about.
If you tribute with 3 monsters, you can destroy all spells and traps your opponent has.
Yeah. So that never happens. So there's that. I guess another monster is the Gravekeeper's Oracle. Sometimes that can do 3 tributes. So
you can activate all effects.
Right. And that has happened a little bit more frequently than the moisture creature. So there's probably a couple more examples in here, but they don't really see much play. So it's hard to say if that's going to be a viable strategy in this game. But I do think that it's not impossible if the card effects are good enough. We have some ways to make it happen, like Mausoleum yourself. It's like a 3-star demotion type thing, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So they've been in the data mine for a really long time. These cards and also the elemental hero cards. There's a ton of elemental hero cards. I don't know what they do, but they're all in the unreleased card catalog, and these cards just keep showing up. Like cards from Echoes of Silence were data mined in April or June, and they just showed up. So they could come in any day. And there's also been sound files with these cards, which are kind of OP. These are cards that we all know from the TCG, but Mystical Space Typhoon, Monster Reborn, Magic Cylinder, Mirror Force, and Swords of Revealing Light. I think these are only going to be like PvE stuff, right? Like, I don't think these cards are too strong.
Yeah, most likely. I could see them eventually creating some format where you can use banned cards against the computer, but not against each other, maybe, or something like that. That'd be interesting. And then these would kind of fall within that category. But we've already seen that Monster Reborn, Kaiba's using it in the current event. So I think that's kind of an indicator of where these really powerful cards will get used in events like this.
Like, Mirror Force is like the biggest card, I think.
Oh, yeah, Mirror Force is definitely OP. That would just destroy the game.
Yeah. And
especially if you could... I was going to say, especially if you could have multiple copies, that would just obviously break the game. I mean, people still complain about people having 3 mirror walls. Imagine if you could have 3 Mirror Force. That would just... People would close the game and never come back.
Yeah. You would have to run, like, counter traps in every deck. Like, there'd just be nothing. And then there's more sound files for these legendary dragon cards. If you're familiar with the 4th season of Yu-Gi-Oh! They're the Eye of Timaeus, the Fang of Critias, and the Claw of Hermos. I don't know what these cards do, but they were all those special cards that they used in the show, and they're actually real cards now. So, this could be the Tower event, because the Tower event, I think, would have to do with Darts or Noah. I think it has to wrap up the original series. If the original series is wrapping up. I don't know if it is. I hope it's not, but if it is, these cards could be in there. We have a link of where you could find these data mined files and listen to the voice lines. It's all on Reddit. So that's the link.
Cool.
Alright, we're going to move on to the last segment, which is the Duel School, and we're going to talk about some of the new contenders from the meta. And you got these from Duel Links meta, right, mostly?
Duel Links meta, some stuff on Reddit. I checked out Game A, of course, kind of just a compilation of everything that we're seeing ourselves and that people are posting as successful. But definitely, Duel Links meta is a great source and kind of one of the top sources that I've used for this. I should start by pointing out that there's some classic decks, and by classic I mean 1 or 2 months old, because that's how quickly this game moves, that are still viable and are still getting people to King of Games. And even Decade mentioned that the meta, as he sees it, the top decks in the meta are Red Eyes, Phoenix, Ninjas, and Control. So those are all older decks, fairly older. Ninjas is kind of, what was that, like a month ago? Ninjas kind of, yeah, it came out fairly recently. So I would add to that Ice Barrier and maybe even Mako are older decks that are still very relevant and can still definitely get you to King of Games. But it does seem like with the addition of new cards and shifts in the meta, there are definitely some new contenders that have been getting reported King of Game results, and that also appear to maybe be on the edge, and they might be things that you want to look out for. The first one is the Toon Barrel Dragon that we were talking about earlier. It has been kind of taking the higher level communities by storm, in that a lot of people are using it to get to King of Games. It appears to, at this point, be the most common King of Games deck in the Duel Links meta collection for September. Excuse me. And Reddit's already complaining about it as the new quote-unquote cancer. So obviously it is something that you kind of want to be aware of, especially if you're trying to compete at the higher levels. It's not as common, of course, the lower levels, both because meta decks generally aren't as common in the lower levels, but also because this particular deck is a little bit hard to get. kind of hard to construct. It's a little bit expensive, and it's a little bit, you need the Toon Barrel Dragons, of course, are a little bit hard to grab, and it's got Toon Kingdom, which you have to level up Pegasus for. So it's a deck that probably only people who are fairly committed to the game will have even access to. The deck uses, of course, Toon Barrel Dragon, usually 3 of them, but minimum 2 probably. Most builds run Sergeant Electro, and then you run Sphere Kuriboh and Windstorm and Curse of Anubis to protect your guys, and also Rare Metalmorph to protect your machines. Toon Kingdom gives you double protection on the Toon Barrel Dragon as well. Instead of using Restart, which a lot of the Toon decks used up until recently, this one uses 3-star Demotion so that you can get the Toon Barrel Dragon online faster. And the cool thing is that, as we talked about before, Toon Barrel Dragon does not need the Toon Kingdom to be summoned to attack or to even live. A lot of the Toons are destroyed if the Kingdom's destroyed, but not this one. So you can just play it without the Toon Kingdom. And these decks are not usually centered around the Toon Kingdom like the Toon decks of yore were. It is instead centered around the Toon Barrel Dragon. And once you have the Toon Kingdom out, then it's just even more OP because they can't target it. You also have the Metalmorph to protect, and it's attacking directly. And as we mentioned when we first talked about it, it can destroy their back row, their front row. It's a beater. It's got the 2600 attack plus. Usually you will have a Metalmorph, a rare Metalmorph. You're running like 3 of them, so it can get up to 3100, which means it contests just about everything in the game for direct attacks as well. This version that I'm seeing usually does not run much life gain, so it is a little bit susceptible to burn and to Lava Golem, because if you use 3-star Demotion, you leave yourself at 1,000 life. If you don't get the Toon Kingdom out, it's also susceptible to just a enemy controller to steal your guy and kill you with your own guy. So we don't see a ton of burn these days, but that would be one counter if this deck kind of becomes too popular maybe. And there's kind of 2 main versions that I'm seeing these days. One of them goes a little bit harder into the Toons and is like a traditional Toon deck that just runs the 3-star Demotion and the Toon Barrel Dragon to get those out faster. The Toon Barrel Dragon is not a special summon, so it takes up your summon for the turn, but if you use like the Mermaids, then that can kind of help you. You don't have to use 3-star maybe. So there's and then there's the other version, which is kind of the one that's a little bit more popular in the Duel Links meta and the high-level Reddit, and that one has almost no Toons, and it's essentially just like the minimum amount of Toons so that you can get out your Toon Barrel Dragon as fast as possible, and you can get the Toon Kingdom to protect it. And I'm trying to figure out which version I like better. The version that runs more Toons is more susceptible to being killed by Toon Kingdom, of course, because the other Toons will die if the Toon Kingdom dies, and also you need the Toon Kingdom before you can play most of the other Toons. So you might have a brick in that sense with dead draws. But the one that's more reliant on 3-star Demotion, of course, makes you more susceptible to the burn and the Lava Golem and stuff like that. So there's a split there, and I'm not sure which one I like better. I've played each one like maybe a handful of times, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing them both more.
Let me add something, or add a question. If you're in a tournament setting and this deck becomes like Red Eyes, like the main deck, is it a good idea to sideboard Acid Rain and or Magnetic Mosquito, which destroy all machines and they jump over Rare Metalmorph and Toon Kingdom?
Well, it doesn't save it from Toon Kingdom because you can then just remove the top card to save the Toon Barrel Dragon. So you would need to get rid of Toon Kingdom first.
Is it just targets, or is it all cards?
Well, Toon Kingdom says you cannot target.
So those cards just destroy all machines. Yeah, so they don't target, right?
Yeah, but there's a second effect. So Toon Kingdom doesn't let you target, but it also says if your Toon dies, then you can remove the top card to save your Toon. And
that's the effect, yeah.
So I've actually seen, it's not on this list, but it's another funny thing that I've seen. I've seen Toon decks running Lava Golem, and what you do is you just put your Toons into defense mode, and you give your opponent a Lava Golem, and you just stall for 4 turns, because you have more than 4 turns worth of cards in your deck to, they can just attack into your defense position Toons, but it doesn't matter. And then maybe on like the 3rd turn, you just switch them to attack and attack directly or something. But I think that for sideboard options, the better one might actually be some sort of Lava Golem of your own, and some way to maybe get it out more easily if you can. Obviously, that's just 1 card, and there's only so many decks that it fits that well into. But tributes are one of the few things that you can't prevent. Tribute kind of works around it all. So if you get the Lava Golem, that's kind of the best way to protect against all of the various Toon Barrel Dragon protections. Another option, of course, is just to go face with some sort of burn or unblockable, something like that, because those cards, if they use a 3-star demotion, then they're themselves a little bit open to that. So those were obviously nerfed with the Restructor Revolution nerf, but there is maybe something there. And it's possible that Mill can help, but this version of Toons is significantly less impacted by Mill, because you don't need the kingdom to go off. You're not going to be protecting as many things, so your kingdom is not going to be milling yourself as frequently. And it really only takes, obviously, 2 hits of the Toon Barrel Dragon to kill you, so there's a faster clock. So I'm not sure if Mill's a good counter. So the next deck that we want to watch might actually be one of those good counters to Toons, and that is Mausoleum Invader. The deck actually existed last month, but it didn't really get a ton of attention. And someone on the Duel Links Meta Discord apparently used it to win the Duel Links Pro tournament recently, which was just another, nicely organized big tournament about it. And then after he did that, his name is Nix, it appears, Nix. After he did that, there was a little bit more. I've seen a couple other people using it in the Duel Links Meta Discord on his September results. I saw it on Game A. So it's not quite yet something that a lot of people are using, but it's definitely seen a little bit of use, and it might be the next one to get a lot of attention. And the way the deck works is, obviously, as you can tell from the name, you use the Mausoleum to cheat out the what's this guy's name? The Invader
of Chaos.
Yeah, Invader of Chaos. And so he is 2,900 attack, prevents the quick play magic, so he's just a really strong guy. And you use Destiny Draw, because when you take that hit from the Mausoleum, that then lets you get the next draw that you want. So it is a really powerful deck because it's cheating out these powerful cards, and it gives you that search engine naturally. It runs some life gain to allow you to kind of keep it going, and it runs naturally the Lava Golem, because both the Invader and the Lava Golem are searchable by the Doom Dome. So it is kind of a natural counter to the Toon Barrel Dragon Toon decks. Also, it bears repeating, or maybe not repeating, it bears noting that one counter to Toon Barrel Dragon is your own Toon Barrel Dragon, because then they can't attack through for free using, or they can't make it unblockable using Toon Kingdom. And also, you can play yours and try to get that coin flip to kill theirs or the Toon Kingdom or something, because you have the 50% chance with his ability. So this deck does not, the list that I'm seeing does not run it, but I've also seen other decks kind of just fitting in the Toon Barrel Dragon if they can. If it's a similar type deck, using, whatever Soul Exchange and stuff like that. The last point on that one, I guess, is that Decade calls it a sleeper deck, and it's kind of proving itself as a top deck, and he was talking about possibly moving it into their top deck category. So if that's not a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is. So you can check that one out. We only talked a little bit about the various cards in it, but you can check it out in the show notes. We're going to add a link to the Duel Links meta page that has all of these compiled lists, or at least a couple of these ones, and that one is definitely one that's on the Duel Links meta page. One last cool thing about it is that I'm seeing one owner's seal, and since you use the Destiny draw, you can get out your little combo where you can use the Lava Golem and then return it to your side. Because you have Destiny Draw and the Doom Dogs, it's a little bit easier for you to do that. So that's fun. That's my kind of the next thing that I want to try out after I have tried out the Toon Barrel Dragon stuff. Do you have any questions or comments to add on that one or anything?
Owner's Seal. That was the card that came out when Lava Golem first appeared. There was such a meme deck where you just summon Lava Golem and then you Owner's Seal.
Yeah, I wanted to play that one at the time, and then I only had one, I forget what it's called, the Mystic Box or whatever, which was kind of part of that deck.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And so I didn't try it out at the time, and this kind of seems like a stronger, more refined way to use that interaction of the Lava Golem Owner's Seal. So I'm looking forward to trying that one out, since I didn't get a chance to try it out the first time it kind of came up. The next one that I think you might want to keep your eye out for, or just try out yourself, is the Gandora Access Denied deck. And Gandora is a monster that allows you to just kind of blow up the whole field. You have to pay half your life, but then at the end of, I think, the turn, he kills himself. And Yugimoto has a skill called Access Denied, and right now he's the only one who has it. And what the skill does is it does not allow monster effects to go off. And so what you can do with the deck is you can play the Gandora, clear the whole field, and then play Access Denied, and that doesn't undo the aspect that you've already done of the effect, but it does prevent the aspect of the effect that has not yet gone through, which is the part where Gandora dies. So you get to clear the field and then not have to pay the downside of Gandora itself leaving play. And so it makes Gandora... before, I've tried playing with Gandora on a few occasions, and it just didn't really work very well, because since you're paying half your life, you need to win that turn. And this effect of keeping Gandora on the field will give you an extra turn or two, and you can use his effect again to clear the field multiple times. So it's a little bit, at this point, it seems like it's mostly more of a meme deck, but I do think that it's a really cool interaction, and obviously whenever you can just blow up the field multiple times in one game, there's a lot of potential there. So that's kind of maybe one that you want to keep your eye on. Might be able to find a deck list. I don't have one in the show notes yet, but I do know that it was on Reddit, so I think we might be able to find one for you.
Can you counter his effect with Ultimate Providence? Like before he blows up the field and you destroy him?
Yeah, I'd assume so. Just because of the timing of it, I think you would. The only reason why you wouldn't be able to would be if Ultimate Providence was already destroyed by the effect, but that seems like that would come after, because you have to counter it before the effect happens. So I would assume that you can. Obviously, that's not seen a ton of play these days, but there are a few cards that would make that maybe worthwhile. So, do you want to do the Silent Magician since you've been playing more of that one?
We could talk about the correction about Super Rush Headlong. Do you have an explanation about that, like why that works? Or that does not work?
It does not work, right. So I think last week we said that Super Rush Headlong was one way that you could counter the Silent Magician because it doesn't target the Silent Magician. And that was just a misunderstanding on our part of how the card will work. We hadn't played with it a ton yet, so we hadn't experienced that yet. But it turns out that it does not prevent magics from targeting it. It prevents them from having an effect, which is a bit of a trap for the unwary, because you can it allows you to still play the magic card and target the Silent Magician, and then it just does nothing. So I've seen people mess up with Soul Exchange, Econ. The AI doesn't understand it with the, what's it called? The balloons, Wonder Balloons in that standard Duelist deck. It just keeps pitching cards to Wonder Balloons while Silent Magician stays huge. And the result is that Super Rush Headlong does not target Silent Magician, but the targeting is not the important part. It's the effect, just any sort of effect from the magic. So that one doesn't work either.
Yeah, Pump Princess doesn't work. Anything that acts as a spell. And fields don't work either. So I forget, someone played a field against me expecting my monster to get weaker or something, and it didn't work either. But yeah, let's talk about the weaknesses Silent Magician has. We touted this card as really high, but playing it on PvP, I found out that people have other ways to counter it, and there's plenty of other ways to counter Silent Magician. And that's traps and monster effects. Those all work. So any monster effects, Sphere Karibo would flip it. And the thing to note is Silent Magician, she has 3,500 attack but 1,000 defense. And 1,000 defense is pretty bad. Something you could use to try to counter that is Mirror Wall. So they'll need a 2,000 attack monster, but you know, that's not the hardest thing, but it gets over those 1,800 attack guys. Windstorm, Curse of Anubis, those all would flip her over. And also monster effects, Barrel Dragons, Lava Golem. Yeah, Lava Golem happened to me a ton. Relinquished would destroy her, essentially. And any of those cards, like Yomi's Ship, Exploder Dragon. Yep, any traps or monster effects would flip her over. And because it's so easy to destroy her now, it might be worth considering running the Herald of Destiny again, so you could Herald of Creation, to get her back from the graveyard. But I don't know if it's worth it. The version that has the Ultimate Insect and Silent Magician does not run that card. So I don't know. I don't know which is the right build for it, but if the Silent Magician dies, you could kind of rely on the Ultimate Insect instead of reviving her. But there's a lot of ways to counter her now.
Yeah, I think the point of noting it in this section is to let the listeners know of those various ways of countering her, but also just on the positive side, it's still a very powerful card that you can just cheat out on the first turn. So there's a lot of potential there, and this might be a deck that's on the cusp. It's definitely not yet defining the meta or anything like that. I don't see it a ton on the ladder myself, but it seems like there's maybe still some room to grow there. So you might see it still at some point.
Yeah, the value of it is kind of hitting over a mirror wall, I guess. That kind of has... it's not like Red Eye Zombie where you could attack things and know your Red Eye Zombie can come back 3 times, because she doesn't come back unless you have Herald of Creation. But yeah, it's kind of like a dinosaur, I guess. That's kind of the way you could describe it. It's just a really big monster, but just know that there are plenty of counters for it.
Yeah. And the last deck that I wanted to highlight in this section is the Hazy Sphinx deck. It's been my baby for a little while now, and I've gotten really good results with it so far. It plays a little bit like a traditional balance control deck in that the Sphinx encourages you to run fire types, and Sergeant Electro is one of the best fire types. And since it's a 1 tribute, it also encourages you to protect them. So you want to run things like Windstorm, and enemy control is particularly good because you can use the tribute effect as well once you get the engine going of the Sphinx. I've faced it just a few times in mirror matches, and after I switched decks, I played against it. And unfortunately, it does not line up very well against Toon decks. So if Toon Barrel Dragon gets huge, then some changes need to be made to the Hazy Sphinx. But it is a really solid deck against most of the other decks in the meta. And like I said, I had a lot of success with it. I went after my first day of not really doing well on the ladder. I had huge success, like 80-90% win rate with it over time. So there was definitely a lot of potential there. And anyone who liked Venus decks like I did, or control, that the typical balance control deck thing, they might want to check out the Hazy Sphinx as well, because it has a similar feel to it, and it just has a lot of explosive potential and a lot of power once you get it all going.
So out of all these decks, do you think Toon Barrel Dragon, it seems like it's the front runner based on what we described, do you think it will get on the level of Red Eyes? In terms of accessibility, I think it's very easy to get 3 Toon Barrel Dragons.
Well, yes, but the thing is that the deck is more inaccessible than just the Toon Barrel Dragons. You need the Toon Kingdom, which obviously is easy to get if you devote a lot of time to it, but not everyone has gotten their Pegasus to level 40. You want 3 rare Metamorphs, and you really would like to have 3 Sergeant Electros, although if you don't have those, I guess what you could do is you could do the more Toon-heavy version and just cut the rare Metamorphs and the Sergeant Electros. And the last big kind of ticket item is Sphere Karibo, which, if you're running the non-Toon version, is also very important, because when you're relying more heavily on 3-star demotion, you kind of need that backup, or else you are likely to die to just a rogue, just any sort of play that kind of just slips through. When you're at 1,000 life, there's a lot of things that can kill you. So the versions that we're seeing all over the Duel Links meta have 3 Sphere Karibos, 3 Sergeant Electros, 3 Rare Metamorph, 3 Toon Barrel Dragon. So that version I don't think is going to see a lot of play, because that's just a lot of money that a lot of people don't have. But I do think that some version of Toon Barrel Dragon might become the deck to beat. I don't think that means, though, that it will surpass Red Eyes. I think Red Eyes maybe feels a little bit better in that you don't have to put yourself down to 1,000 life. It feels a little bit like more solid, at least so far to me. So even though Toon Barrel Dragon, I think, is favored against Red Eyes, I think Red Eyes will remain a big part of the meta, and Toon Barrel Dragon will not become at any point as big of a part of the meta as Red Eyes is, at least within this current card pool. As things shift very frequently in this game, it's hard to make definitive statements that will last for any significant amount of time. But I do think that it will shape the meta, but not quite to the level that Red Eyes did.
There you have it.
Also, I think the Mausoleum Invader deck might become the good kind of counter deck. So the Toon Barrel Dragon might become the new like deck to beat, and then the second deck to beat would probably stay as Red Eyes, and then Mausoleum Invader might become the kind of the tier 2 counter deck choice to kind of counter that meta of those two.
And it's a little easier because both of the cards you can get from the trader.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So we have a link of the Duel Links Meta September King of Games collection from that page, and then also a video of Decade walking us through his community.
Yeah, that was a cool video. He kind of highlights some of the advantages of his Discord, and within that video, he points out a lot of these decks and talks about them a little bit, the ones that end up making it into that list. So if you want a little bit more than just the list of the decks, he talks about them a little bit in that video, as well as kind of promoting his own Discord, which looks pretty dope.
Yeah, it's pretty good for free. It's good he showed us the deck lists without needing us to join. So it's like a lot of good free stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. All right, so I guess we're done for this week. You could find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and others. Check out the podcast and more at our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. Check out our YouTube channel. We have all these videos there. Help support us. Help us try to play new decks. Patreon.com/duel_assessment. Send us an email with any suggestions at theduelassessment@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter, duel_assessment, me at Green Ranger HS, DeckTech at HS DeckTech.
That's right. We look forward to hearing from you.
Alright, see you guys.
Bye-bye.